So we chose the phrase skin health equity intentionally because this goes beyond just isolated diagnoses or cosmetic considerations. It's about outcomes, access, education, and trust. So, Dr. Taylor, I'll start with you. From your perspective as a founder and longtime leader in this space, why does this moment feel different from the past?
Well, I think this time is a little bit different from the past because we are making so many advances and strides. When we think about diseases that were previously neglected, I think about hidradenitis suppurativa disproportionately affects women of African descent, for example. We finally have some therapeutic tools where we did not in the past. Look at atopic dermatitis, also disproportionately affecting patients with skin of color. So I think we now have cutting edge and effective as well as safe therapies. In addition, we have made huge strides in educating our colleagues regarding skin of color dermatology. I think about the clinical image collection at of the American Academy of Dermatology, for example. I think about the textbooks that have been published. So on several different fronts, we have made tangible gains and differences.
And I think it's interesting because in the past, we used to talk about these disparities in hallways, but now it's on social media. It's in the literature. Industry's actually taking notice. So it's really moved from we actually care to prove that you care. Show us what you're doing differently in the field. Dr. Elbuluk, just as someone who's been deeply involved in education, research, what signals tell you that the field may be ready to pivot?
Well, I think to your point, we're starting to see change, right? It used to just be talk, and now there's accountability. And if you're not doing it, people are asking. And so I think now, we see companies both on the industry and cosmeceutical side, we see journals, we see conferences, all of them making this a priority, right? They're thinking about health equity, they're thinking about what they are doing in that space to be cognizant and make a difference. And so I think that sort of level of accountability is different from before. I think before people could get away with saying, well, it was a limitation or we weren't able to, but now people are expecting it, so which is great.
Well, and I also think to some degree with the US population continuing to diversify, it's turning into a patient safety issue if we can't treat the heterogeneity of patients that we're seeing in everyday clinical practice. So all of this conversation, I think, just makes me very excited that now is time for us to put our money where our mouth is and really do something. Now, I know that Derm has made a lot of meaningful progress in recent years, but we know there are still gaps that remain clinically, structurally, educationally, and progress matters, but only if we're honest about what still hasn't changed. So let's just talk about some of the progress that we've been encouraged by, which we touched upon already, but also where do we still need to do some work in 2026?
Well, I'd like to talk about clinical trials. I know that there are many efforts, specifically by the Skin of Color Society, to advance clinical trials and ensure that we have diverse investigators as well as diverse patients. I think there are pharmaceutical companies who are very invested in this. I think about the Visible trial, which really enrolled all skin of color patients to evaluate the efficacy and tolerability of guselkumab for psoriasis, for example. And then there are other companies who are ensuring that patients enrolled are, of course, diverse and reflect our population. So this is, I think, at the beginning stage, right? We need more progress in regard to clinical trials.
Yeah, and I would add, I think there's other spaces where we're seeing progress. So when we look at our conferences, people are thinking much more about the imagery they put in their lectures, making sure that they're diverse. There's more sessions that are focused on things that may disproportionately affect patients of color. Textbooks, same way. They're more mindful, right, about the information and photos that they're putting in. So I think we're seeing the changes. But to Dr. Taylor's point, the work isn't done, right? There's still more that we can do. I am glad to see that, skin of color isn't siloed all the time either as just skin of color, but it's now in all spaces where people are thinking about how do I make sure that the work that I'm doing is balanced and representative.